Welcome to the TMC Newsroom. I'm Carrie Schmelkin and we're at Cloud Expo in Santa Clara this week. On our program right now is Jim Mackay, Senior Vice President of Business Development at SOA Software.
Hello.
Jim, welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here.
Great to be here.
Tell us a little bit about SOA Software.
So SOA Software has been around as a company for about 10 years now. Our heritage or our history is in SOA governance. So we've worked with Fortune 500 companies throughout our history to really harden down what their internal web services initiatives are and what it is that they do with that in order to bring them to market. In the last year or so, though, we've moved more to, as has the market, moved more towards focusing on APIs and API management.
Okay, great. And tell us what brings you to Cloud Expo this week.
Well, speaking of API management, we're announcing Atmosphere Cloud this week at the show. Okay. Atmosphere is our API management brand, if you will, and we've had an on-premises version of that since June. We've now brought out our cloud version, which allows us to be able to mix and match our deployment configuration, either behind the firewall or in the cloud, or some level of combination of the two.
Okay, great. So I'm assuming this will help you guys in the increasingly competitive cloud market a little bit more, but what other ways do you guys stand out and keep yourselves competitive?
Well, cloud is, for us, more of a vehicle as opposed to a kind of a discipline. Mm-hmm. So what API management is really all about and why it's really catching on is companies are now starting to realize that through APIs they can open up another channel to be able to expand their brand or to reach new markets. And so they're looking at, they're struggling with how to do that. Just like 10 years ago they thought of websites as a way of essentially expanding their brand, and they struggled at that time to kind of figure out how to do it. But they know they need to. Mm-hmm. So they're looking at companies like us to be able to provide them the tools to be able to stand up an API mm-hmm. and be able to expose that to a community, whether it's their community that they bring to bear or the open community that we have within our cloud version, mm-hmm. and to be able to get application developers to be aware of their API and to figure out essentially how they can best leverage that API. So in a way, what it's doing is they've harnessed and tapped their IT departments in the past for innovation internally. What this does is allow them to tap an outside group of application developers to really harness their innovation and to figure out how they can take that API either alone or combine it with other APIs, and to be able to come up with cool and innovative ways of being able to use it either in mobile applications or in the form of a mashup.
Great. So you guys have been in the industry for a decade. So tell us a little bit about some of the trends over the last 10 years, how the industry has changed.
Well, going back to SOA, web services 10 years ago, most people didn't know what they were either. So there was a lot of evangelizing that had to go on for people to understand what web services were all about. That market has really matured. Mm-hmm. I think that we've definitely, to use a Mooreism, we've crossed the chasm. Mm-hmm. So now what we're seeing in that space is that companies are looking much more pragmatically at how it is that they want to put an SOA implementation in place. And they're also saying, okay, great, so I've focused a lot of energy on bottom line and ensuring that I can reuse my services and that they're bulletproof and that I'm using them properly inside my organization. Now how can I turn that around and focus more on a top-line opportunity and actually get a business benefit from increasing business and proliferating my brand, if you will, from the investment that I put in that inside. So that's really where we've kind of seen it turn. And the other side of that is that in the past we talked a lot to IT people, architects, enterprise architects, and that within the organization. But the API movement is really more driven by business development, marketing people focused on what their mobile solution is, etc. So it's a different kind of group of people that we're initially talking to. They get excited about it. They go talk to their CIO, mm-hmm. and then the CIO goes to his IT people and says, "So tell me about what our API initiative is." And it's like they're scrambling to get that done. So.
Right. So you mentioned what people are talking about. What are people talking about here? Is there anything that's really surprised you or been interesting to hear, whether it's at the sessions or just at the floor?
I think it's been really interesting. I mean, first of all, the size of the show. I mean, the number of people that are coming out. We've been at this show a few years, both as spectators as well as exhibitors, and it continues to increase in size. And it's been interesting as they've, with a market that's kind of maturing like cloud, you now start to see segmentation. So people are trying to get the nomenclature down about public versus private clouds. I've seen a lot of discussion, for instance, about security. Now that I think that's kind of one of the last barriers, if you will, for a lot of the more pragmatic folks that are out there that are a little bit worried about whether they should move to cloud, is will my information actually be secure out there? So I've seen a big trend here talking about ways to address security and give people a comfort level in going to the cloud.
You mentioned the difference between public, private, hybrid clouds and the definitions, how confusing those can be. Have we made any headway with that? Do you feel like there's a better understanding?
Of the nomenclature in general, or public versus private?
Yeah.
I think, well, I like the fact that it's almost self-explanatory, the public versus private, in the sense that you either stand it up yourself or you go somewhere and you set it and forget it, right? So I think there has been some headway in getting the nomenclature down. And I think the proof of that is in the market, is that you now see people talking about public and private cloud solutions, you know, as you walk around the floor here.
Great. So what's next for SOA Software?
Well, we've got a lot of work to do to really, you know, capture the market, if you will, with API management. I think that the social aspects that we bring to API management are something that's unique and that will continue to grow around. We've got the ability, for instance, for people to be able to, as application developers, you come into Atmosphere and you can connect with friends or connect with colleagues. You can follow colleagues that you want to follow, similar to some of the social tools you see out there. We won't name any. You can also follow APIs and kind of keep up with what's going on from an API perspective. So the big thing for us is to use those social tools right now to essentially grow and scale our community, both the public community as well as the tools for people to build their own community. So I think that that's going to be a big push for us over the next year, is to continue on the social side of what it is that we've already put out there to complement the true management side.
Well, great. Well, we look forward to seeing how that unfolds. Thanks so much,
So do I.
Jim.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.